Welcome to The Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, passionate investing community. I have a treat for you today. I have the pleasure of interviewing Nicholas Abraham. He's in the build to sell space. For those of you interested in ground up construction, this show will be a treat. If you're not investing in ground up construction, I do, by the way. And I'll tell you, we're going to talk about some extraordinary projected returns, which, by the way, and I'll let Nick tell his own story, has a great track record behind that. Got some great things going on in construction. Want to make sure that this audience has an opportunity to see what it looks like to get a piece of the action. And I think with that, let's just introduce our guest for the day. Nicholas, welcome.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks so much for having me, George.
So what do you have to say about our housing crisis?
Yeah, so it's a house crisis, not a housing crisis, in my opinion, right? Here in Charlotte, we had 32,000 apartments delivered this year. Many of the metros are also facing more of the same with the lag of completion of the things permitted before COVID that are now coming online, and all the new apartments that have been permitted post-COVID because of all the population migration due to COVID. And so we have a lot of apartments that have come online, but people aren't looking for apartments. They're looking for homes, and they want to be able to fix their cost of living and start to make a dent on their student loan repayment. And I'm talking generally about, the millennials and, my generation, and where we're, what we're facing, what are we facing? We're facing inheriting an infrastructure that's crumbling with asbestos and mold and lead pipes and, lead paint, right? If you're buying an older home. And so what we're all looking for is that new construction house. We can buy it for around 350, 400,000, and we're not looking to do much anything else other than get our ducks in a row because that's all happening later in life for us because of the cost of living and, the cost of college. And, a lot of us are still paying on our student debt. And so, when homes were here in Charlotte, 400,000 in the best neighborhoods, and now they're 600,000 and rates have doubled or tripled in some, depending on what timeline you look at, that's really hard to afford for well-educated couples like even my wife and I, who both have, college degrees, and she has a master's. And, that's just not a reality for a lot of us unless you're, that entrepreneur in e-com or the crypto guy who bought a bunch of Dogecoin or something, a few years ago. But for the majority of working society and where we're all at, that's the real struggle we're in. The average car payment's $1,000. There's a crisis going on everywhere. Social Security they'll have to reduce the benefits to 67% by 2035. And so our generation just isn't going to get the same effects that the previous generations have been able to benefit from. And so we're just working a lot harder and trying
So
to
you're
make
telling me
ends
Social
meet.
Security is not property capitalized? Okay. So I don't know how many crises we can talk about. Let's get back to the housing crisis. And I want to circle back to something you said, that people want to
Sure.
live in a home, not rent an apartment. And of course, that's always the preference. That's the American dream, as we call it. And it's true. We have a country with a lot of wide open space. There's still room to build. When you look at, how we're living versus how people live, for example, in Japan, a country that has maybe, in very rough numbers, 1/3 of the population living in a very much smaller area. People are sort of living on top of each other. It's very, very different here. And so we still do have this American dream here. Now, looking at the construction data, I will tell you that for a very long time, it was multifamily that was really carrying the ball. When I talk in terms of units, people need a place to live. First of all, you need a place to live. And the only reason why we got anywhere near 1.5 million completions per year, and we've gotten a little bit above that for the last few months as we round out 2024, was multifamily. But now it's reversed. And we actually have multifamily starts at 11-year lows. And single family is coming back to the forefront. Now, I know that we are going to have to unfortunately wrap this up soon. We talked about construction as if it's one thing. And even single family construction is not just one monolithic ball of wax. You've got build to rent and you've got build to sell. I know you're doing both, and they're both important because they both have a place. So people who want to rent, but maybe want to have their own four walls, maybe they want a small yard that they don't have to cut, which is nice advantage. They might like the build to rent. And then from the investor side, you've got multiple exits because what if it doesn't rent out? Well, you could sell it or you could sell part of it. There's a lot of great avenues for the build to rent. But why don't you talk about the two markets and what that offers, particularly to investors because that's our audience.
Yeah. So one, we're doing somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 build to rent projects in 2025. And one, that's important because it gives the firm a diversification of capital. So if one market suffers, maybe the other market's still there. So that's really important in terms of risk as a builder. That's just a way we're diversifying our revenue streams. But we have a couple institutional partners. We're doing 1,200 units down in Jacksonville, another 600 or so over in Nashville. And then we have a couple partnerships here in Charlotte. We're building another, I would say 2, 3, 400 as well. So we are seeing a lot of demand for that. And I think that's becoming the new American dream. Someone just said it last week in the real estate meetup I was at, that renting your house is the new American dream. It's no longer owning it. You look at average, lifetimes of home ownership. It used to be 5 years you'd stay in a house, then you'd move. Now it's like 2. And so it really has chopped down a little bit because of COVID. But to your point, single families coming back, people want to be in a house. If you're looking at millennials specifically, the statistic isn't because they have kids that need a yard, it's because they have a dog and they want to get a yard for the dog. And that's been the number one driver of millennial home ownership and purchasing. But we don't have to buy that house for that to be a reality. We can go rent it now.
So I guess it's a dog's world, they say. Is it true, Nicholas?
I mean, you see all the dog parks and multifamily going in. You spend 100,000 and your NOI
I
goes
stayed
up
at a
$50
hotel
a
last
door.
night, and I will tell you that there was a little dog walk. Now, it wasn't much to speak of, but yes, people love their pets. Actually, a lady that flew back next to me, she had a little pet poodle that actually fit under. That was her personal item, was the pet poodle. But
Yeah.
I asked her, and you actually have to buy a ticket for that. But the nice thing is it's only $125. They don't actually charge you for the price, or I should say the length of the flight. So yeah, you can fly across country. I asked her, I don't know if you know the answer, but I mean, can you fly halfway around the world? Is it still $125 just to bring your pet? Yeah, people love their pets.
Yes, it depends on the airline, but I think
Yeah.
Delta just rolled out free as long as they fit on your lap, they fly for free now. Or maybe it's American. Um,
Okay,
that
well,
does
I was flying
one.
Spirit, so they charge you for
Oh yeah,
everything.
that's double for the dog, double for a doodle because they know they can charge you too.
Yeah, yeah, but I got some good discount tickets. I got in and out in a day, so that's what I did. I don't mind flying economy. I think I'm going to be there for what, 2 hours. So if I'm renting this space for 2 hours, does it really need to be perfect? No, it doesn't. I don't pay for my seat or anything. And they gave me the aisle seat too. Guy next to me, who knows? He might have paid to sit in the center. But
Yeah,
I love this, Nicholas, and I wish we could talk like for hours because I think it's a huge topic. Building, it is the most complex facet of real estate. It is potentially the greatest, the most well rewarded, and for good reason.
you're adding
But
the
I
most
thought, what if
value.
we?
Yeah,
Huh?
you're adding the most value, and the easy way to say it to multifamily investors is it's way easier to call a contractor in to renovate something that's already built than it is to have that guy build it all the way from top to bottom from the land up,
Well,
right?
I would agree with that, but there is one problem, and that is, if you've ever seen the shows, they'll open up the walls and say, "Oh, the price just went up." So, a couple of things, you're often boxed into when you do redevelopment, the city is going to say, "Well, hey, this is new construction." There's only so much you can do as a remodel, and then they call it new construction, and even if they seem nice on the intake, they can really completely change your projections. So, yes, easier, yes. But if then they start treating it as new construction, then you can find yourself at a completely different price point that you didn't bargain for. The one nice thing I will say about construction, and it is very nice if you know what you're doing, and we do, in my family, we're doing quite well, is that you know that you're going to have to pay the tap-in fee to get into the city water. You know that you're going to have to run your utilities under the road. You know you're going to have to build a road, and you know you're going to have to pay for all those things. So at least there's no surprise in that respect. There is usually a little Easter egg at each step of the process, though, because it's never easy. So if you have a moment, I would just love to do our lightning round. This would be an opportunity for our listeners to get to know you better because you are in investor relations. And so, yes, if you want to go and invest in that ground up construction deal with Nick, Nick is the guy you're going to be talking to. So, Nick, I want to know if you could be known for only one thing, what would it be?
My goal is to be the investor relations guy that private equity, credit investors want to go to. I think that I'm building a reputation around partnering and aligning with some of the best operators out there, doing my own due diligence because working for these firms myself, I qualify as an accredited investor through the loophole as a knowledgeable employee. So I'm doing my own due diligence. And so if I'm at a firm, it's usually a vote of confidence that, hey, this is someone I would want to work with because they have some type of a competitive advantage. But I tell all my investors, I want to be a master communicator and I want to be able to pick up the phone 10 years from now and call you and say, hey, I got a deal. And so that's really the reputation I'm trying to build and want to be known for.
Yeah, so perhaps we have a title for the show. This might be the investor relations guy,
Hey,
Nicholas Abraham. We'll see.
see.
Okay, my assistant, she picks the titles and she does a great job. So, what is the greatest lesson in leadership you learned as an entrepreneur, as an investor, or as investor relations?
Yeah. So, the greatest lessons that I've learned come from alignment, and as a econ finance background, economics is nothing but incentives. So having the right alignment between all parties involved and having an all-star team all the way across the board, right? No matter if it's your investor or if it's the operator, if it's the investor relations, or if it's the fulfillment of the whatever's happening, everyone needs to be top notch. And so that to me is in terms of what really makes something a success and one of the best lessons I've learned in entrepreneurship. When it comes to leadership, though, it's really just propping up the team around you, and letting everyone know that I couldn't have done it without George, without John, without Jane, and giving credit where credit's due.
Love it. And what personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
Being genuine, 100%, hands down, just being myself. And you can tell I'm passionate about what I do. I've been living and
Love
breathing
it.
this stuff for like 15 years now, since I was middle school day trading, because I was making more in a Roth account than I was laboring on the farm, baling hay in the summers with my brother and my dad.
All right, I
And
like
that's what
it.
set me down the track. So being genuine and solution oriented. I think a lot of people stop when something just doesn't, it's not a yes or, and it ends up being a no. And for me, I'm always trying to go, well, how can this make sense? Where does it make sense? And try to find the solution. It's such a problem oriented world. And especially in real estate, you have to find the solutions in order to get the deals done. And that's what I'd say.
Love it. I know communication is also something that means a lot to you. So for those of you who want to
Yeah.
become great communicators, be very genuine. When you know who you are, people know who you are. And it's very easy to stay on message, to be clear, and to deliver that message. So, yeah, I think I love to see how people's values, it's always a constellation. It all makes sense when you get to know somebody. Okay, I've got a random question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just tell me when to stop cutting the deck.
Magician
Oops.
George.
Some of
Now.
them fell down. Okay, here. From what's left, top question is, uh, are you mentally or physically tougher?
I'm definitely mentally tougher. I figured out it's better to eat healthy than to have to work out. So that's been my mentality on that side.
I like
Um,
it. Okay, so that requires some discipline. I like it. And
yeah.
you know what? I'd love to take a quick stab at that. And I say, like, well, hey, now wait, what's the difference? Because how do you build that mental toughness? One of the one of the prime ways to do it, like you mentioned, diet or exercise, go out and be physically tough, is a great way to build the mental toughness. Can you give us a tip or trick that investors can implement in their business today?
Tip or trick to implement in their business today? Well, coming from the marketing side of things, you know, if you're not on digital media, social advertising, you're behind the ball. It's really the young man's game getting at scale with ads than it is grassroots networking at RIA events or whatever it may
Mhm.
be. Everybody is at scale now, but you have to be able to maintain your genuine self at scale, is what I would say.
I love it. Yeah, I know that's one of your strengths is that digital marketing. So I'm glad we got that in. Check that box. And then one final question before I send you off. Beautiful interview. I want to give you a sort of a hardball question at the end. What is
Okay.
one thing that most people in your field believe that you think is just wrong?
Most people, I would say, don't think the buck stops with them. And to me, I always want to work with people who believe the buck stops with them. It's because if everybody believes the buck is with them, then nothing falls through the cracks.
I love it, and I feel like everybody says the buck stops with them. And, but how many people actually practice that? That's real integrity. And, I think that's a perfect way to end the show. Send us out with something profound like that. But I want to make sure that if people want to learn more about ground up construction, build to rent, build to sell, if they want to invest through you, what is the best way to reach Nicholas Abraham? Sorry, usually I go into carrier pigeon, smoke signal, email, a website. What's
Yeah.
your preferred mode of communication?
Call or text
Call or
614
text.
634 8023. That's my personal line. I tell investors all the time if it's the weekend, just call me up. I'm either working on my house doing a construction project or I'm at an event or meeting an investor for lunch. If I'm not working, I'm just hanging out with my wife, and that's where I get all my fulfillment.
Okay, I love it. And yeah, always good to bring it back. That personal fulfillment is great. If your personal life is not great, it's hard to have the juice to put into that job. Big fan of the idea that, we just live one life. It's a unified whole. And so if you're not eating right, exercising, having that positive physical aspect, if your relationships are not in order, it's really hard to have your professional life in order. And of course, professional life that supports everything else too. Hopefully, giving you the time to get out and take care of the body and take care of the people you love. So I love it. Beautiful interview, Nicholas. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with our audience.
Thanks for having me, George.
My pleasure.